This is Good Morning Transfers, and it feels like there's no point trying to write a script for this show because there's breaking news all the time, especially at Leicester. Their fans will be happy at the moment. A new forward is on the way, maybe a fan favourite on his way back, and they've still got their key defender for now. We'll be discussing them this morning, but what else is on the way?
Yes, Marko Arnautovic's agent has accused West Ham of treating the forward like a farmyard animal. Arnautovic has handed in a transfer request at West Ham for the second time in 6 months.
He's in the headlines again. Oh yes, Neymar. Make sure you find out where the Brazilian star is being linked to now.
We'll be live with Wolves at St George's Park as the club looks to play in its first season in Europe for almost 40 years. But who will they be signing this summer? Analysis is on the way.
Bournemouth were the second biggest spenders in the January transfer window, with one in already. What's next for Eddie Howe? We'll bring you right up to date.
Hi, can I get you a drink?
I'm all right, actually. Thank you. Yes, make sure you get involved on social media, hashtag Transfer Talk. You'll know by now that we read your tweets out and put your questions to the panel as well. OK, we're going to get underway because what a 24 hours it's been for Leicester. We told you yesterday the club turned down a £70 million bid from Manchester United for Harry Maguire. Last night there was a further twist. We reported that Manchester City are ready to match Manchester United's offer of £70 million, which of course had been rejected. City can offer Maguire Champions League football though. All right, so Mark McAdam, bring us the latest on this.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. We said yesterday on Sky Sports News that there was interest from Manchester City. They have agreed to match and rival Manchester United in that £70 million bid. And you get the feeling this is one that is going to carry on and roll and roll and roll. Obviously, Harry Maguire has been superb over the last 12 months or so. He's obviously caught the attention because of his performances both with Leicester and England. And when you look at the last 24 hours or so, you believe there's going to be another Alexis Sanchez-style bidding war between the two Manchester sides. Leicester's position is simple. They don't want to sell him, they don't need to sell him, and Harry Maguire is focusing on one thing: his football.
Yeah, JD, it's quite interesting because it seems like Manchester United are always making the first move and Man City just going, oh, well, we'll match that.
Well, it's a power play, isn't it? I mean, you need to understand from the historic point of view, everyone knows that Manchester United is the historical club within Manchester. But Man City have this modern appeal now. They have this appeal where players want to play under Guardiola. They want to play with the best players in the world. And Manchester City aren't going to want to lose another target, especially to Manchester United of all places, because they want to demand themselves as maybe the kings of Manchester, the kings of England right now.
And Michael, how impressed are you with the fact that Harry Maguire is just saying absolutely nothing and getting on with it?
Doesn't really need to say much, does he, Tom? You've got two huge clubs after you. He's got a fantastic reputation already. I said yesterday on Good Morning Transfers, he's very much a leader. I see him as a leader. Leicester City was like a leader at Hull City, and I think he's got this bit of a pull as an England defender now as well. So it's a bit of a case of wait and see. Of course, he's not back at pre-season training yet for Leicester after playing for England for the Nations League. So, yeah, it's a case of wait and see for me, Tom.
I did say that at the moment this is good news for Leicester fans because Maguire is still a Leicester player and he may end up still a Leicester player come the end of the transfer window. But there's a new man coming in, possibly, isn't there, Anton? Just before we get to him, all right, you're about to say that it's Ayoze Perez. I know that, but I need... I know, well, yes, but it's because I want to hear from the fans, all right? Get involved on a hashtag Transfer Talk because I want to know what, first of all, Leicester fans think about the signing of Ayoze Perez and what the Newcastle fans think about losing Ayoze Perez. And while Anton's chatting, I'll try to get some up and read them out and maybe put some questions ahead. But where are we at with it?
Well, look, I mean, this all sort of developed kind of really quickly last night, didn't it? Newcastle have accepted an offer from Leicester of around £30 million for the forward. The player still needs to have a medical, but and agree personal terms. But we know Ayoze Perez is keen on a move, and Leicester does excite him. So it looks like this deal should go through, which will excite a lot of Leicester fans, I'm sure, because he adds options to that front line. They've got very direct options in the wide positions, for example, and obviously Jamie Vardy probably needs some support behind him, and they need a backup for James Maddison if he can't play. So lots of options. He brings versatility and he brings pressing. He brings a certain defensive discipline to a team that Brendan Rodgers will absolutely love as well. So this deal looks like it's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to talk about the Newcastle context in a bit. I'm looking at Leicester at the moment. You all know I'm a big fan of Brendan Rodgers. he has this pull, I think, and I think I'm looking at Leicester as one side potentially could possibly break into that top 6. Okazaki, of course, has been released. There are obviously concerns about Iheanacho as well. Obviously, that miss at Manchester City in April, you know, they'll remember that, so they've not been convinced there. And probably Vardy needs a little bit of competition, or as a partner as well. It's a bit of a no-brainer one in terms of the fee as well, I feel.
Yeah. I agree with that.
I feel so badly for Newcastle fans. These last 3 days have to be probably one of the most emotional days, especially going into a new season that they've experienced. They've lost their manager at the back end of last season, the start of this season, so you haven't got anything going into the pre-season. Now you're losing one of your key players. You're talking about your top goal scorer over the last 2 seasons. Like, as a Newcastle fan right now, how do you kind of understand everything that's going on at your club? Ayoze Perez should have been one of the players that should have been certified and turned around and say, you're staying here so we can rebuild this club right now with a new manager. And to see him leave for 30 million in this market, you have to look at it, it's questionable.
I think emotional is an interesting word to use, because this won't be an easy decision for Ayoze Perez. Well, he moved to Newcastle as a young man. He's lucky to spend a bit of time with him sort of in Tenerife as well. He goes back as often as he can. He brings his family very close with him. And he's made Newcastle a home, which was a big move for him as a young man when he came over as an under-21 player. And he's settled into the area, he's settled into the squad. For him to turn around and say, right, I need to move on now, I think says a lot about where Newcastle are. I think it says a lot about how he felt at the club, which is, look, I need to move to develop. He's got big ambitions to potentially go on and play for Spain still, you know, even though he's sort of approaching the end of his 20s. So he thinks he can't do that at Newcastle United. I agree. I think that's quite a sad situation.
Well, let's see just exactly how much of a blow this will be for Newcastle. We've got some stats that show it. He really did do well last season, Ayoze Perez. He hasn't always been on top form, but he certainly was in the last season or so under Rafael Benitez. Look at the right-hand side there. First for all of those things apart from one, and in that one he's second. So 12 was more than Solomon Rondon, I think only by 1. I think Rondon got 11. Shooting accuracy of 62% is, again, the first in terms of the Newcastle players last season. Dribbles attempted, that's something that, that Brendan Rodgers will like. As Anton was saying, the first for Newcastle there as well. The most dribbles completed, which is obviously no point attempting dribbles if you're not going to complete them. So he's the best for Newcastle as well in terms of big chances created. 5 admittedly isn't that many, but they were quite a defensive style of football. Leicester won't be.
One other as well that isn't in there. 60 tackles in the Premier League last season, which is a lot considering how high he plays up the pitch.
But that's pressing, isn't it?
Yeah, Brendan Rodgers will love that.
Yeah, because that's exactly the kind of style that he says. Just before I read out some tweets, Mark, let's just bring you in here. This £30 million, Newcastle, is that the general consensus? Is that did you
fair?
just say?
I think it's
a fair price rather than overpriced.
I think it's a fair deal. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you. I just think it's a fair deal. What I just want to explain, I think it's a fair deal for Leicester. I don't necessarily think it's necessarily in this market for your star striker, £30 million.
What it does to Newcastle, though, is it sends alarm signals around the training ground, around the football club, around the fan base, because just a matter of hours after Rafa Benitez has departed, they're selling their key player. So every single player in that dressing room will now be looking at the situation thinking, well, if Perez is going to go, what does that mean for me? And I think that's the biggest concern about this. So soon after the managerial departure, they're losing a key.
Less than a month, we were talking about a potential huge takeover.
Well, it could still happen, of course.
Absolutely.
It could still happen. I'll tell you what, I did promise to read out some tweets, so let me just do that, OK? Razor here says, how come Newcastle accepted Leicester's bid so quickly? Is his contract running out? Leicester reject 2 massive offers from Maguire, but Newcastle seem to accept the first bid for Perez. Seems like they could have gotten more. So Razor there thinking that the price should be higher and Newcastle maybe should have played hardball. Daniel Gordon, Perez to Leicester would be nice, but the price doesn't seem right for a player who went to Newcastle for around about £2 million. I think it was 1.7, even less. A bit strange for them to put a £30 million bid in, but would certainly bring depth to the attack. So that's a Leicester fan's point of view. I've got one more as well, another Newcastle fan, Paul Nicholson, says we'll miss his goals, but £30 million a massive offer and too good to turn down. Remember, Perez wanted to leave Newcastle even before Rafa left. That's a good point.
Good point.
So to get that amount for a player who cost less than £2 million, again 1.7 million, and divided fans is a decent move as long as the fee is reinvested. That last point there is something that I think Mark was about to make.
And this is why we love the tweets.
Yeah, exactly, absolutely. And just to end when it comes to Leicester here. Yuri Tielemans, we'll be discussing him in transfer talk at midday because Leicester's negotiations with Monaco over the deal for him, they are progressing, we understand, with the Belgian midfielder keen on a long-term move to the King Power Stadium. So that is more good news for Leicester. It's all good for them today. Right, let's get the state of play with Dave.
OK, let's talk about one of the big deals over the last 24 hours. Marko Arnautovic's brother and agent has accused West Ham of treating the player like a farmyard animal. Arnautovic handed in a transfer request for the second time in 6 months in a bid to force through a move to an unnamed Chinese club. West Ham have rejected a bid of just under £20 million. Now, also speaking exclusively to Sky Sports News, Arnautovic's brother and agent Daniel says he's not a cow or a horse which you bring to market. I'm sure that's got plenty to run. Tanguy Ndombele has become the most expensive player in Spurs history after joining from Lyon for a little under £63 million. The French international has signed a 5-year deal with the option for a 6th. And Tottenham have also done another deal. They signed 18-year-old Jack Clarke from Leeds for an initial fee of £8.5 million. Clarke immediately has gone back to Ellen Road on loan for next season. Everton striker Sandro Ramirez has joined Real Valladolid on a season-long loan. Sandro joined Everton 2 years ago, but hasn't scored a Premier League goal for the club. His last league goal was for Malaga, and that was back in May 2017. And just finally, one line reaching us in the last few minutes or so. Sky sources understand Leeds are in advanced talks to sign Wolves winger Helder Costa. We're going to Wolves in the next few minutes.
Yeah, we will be. We've got another couple of lines just to bring you just quickly because we understand that Phil Jagielka, he's training with Burnley, but Burnley aren't looking to sign him, we're told at the moment anyway. He's purely training with Burnley to keep his fitness up. He's available on a free transfer after leaving Everton. Well, 30th of June, his contract expires, so he's training with Burnley, but we're told that at the moment that's purely to keep his fitness up. We've also got a line about a top-quality Bournemouth centre-back, which Mark McAdam can bring us.
Yeah, Nathan Ake joined Bournemouth in the summer of 2017 from Chelsea for £20 million. He became Bournemouth's record signing at the time, and since then, both on and off the field, he has been absolutely superb for Eddie Howe. He's been one of those players that's just quietly gone about his business. You don't see him in the media, you don't see him in the spotlight, but every single weekend he turns up to play for the Cherries. And over the course of the last 24 hours or so, there's been a few rumours in the media about possible links with him and other clubs in the Premier League and abroad. But it's our understanding here at Sky Sports News and Good Morning Transfers that as of yet, there have been no official bids, no official offers and no official interest as far as the Bournemouth angle is concerned.
It could be quite good timing for Bournemouth, this actually, because, of course, he was constantly linked with a move back to Chelsea, wasn't he? Chelsea can't sign anyone, so they could well get an extra year out of him at least just because of that.
And to be honest, when you look at his performances, he's been superb for Bournemouth. Last season, 39 appearances, he was an ever-present, he scored 4 goals. Their 4 goals doesn't really suggest how dangerous he is in the opposition's box. He's got the ability to defend. He played in midfield a couple of times for Eddie Howe as well. He can play at left-back. He's a versatile player, and the thing I love about Nathan is he is a pure football man.
Say something, if Nathan Ake was 6'5", he'd already be at a top 4 club. He's that good. But he's near the top of most of the defensive stats in the Premier League. He's even 3rd on the headers list, considering he's only, what, 6 foot?
5'11".
5'11", there you go.
I think he's the same height as me.
Yeah, I mean, you say you're interested, absolutely, but he's certainly admired by top 6 clubs as well. Looking at Toby Alderweireld, Tottenham hope he stays, but he's a player who brings the... you see him all the time, Bob, brings the ball out the back. His distribution's fantastic. Even scored against Tom, didn't he, in May? And he'd be someone who they might be looking at if Alderweireld moved on with that.
One thing to remember as well is that Chelsea do have a buyback clause in the contracts. I know Chelsea obviously can't register any new players, but that is one thing that is always at the back of everyone's minds when it comes to Nathan Ake.
I'm going to put this out there. I think Nathan Ake is so good, he could play for Barcelona one day.